We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, and now in Albuquerque, New Mexico on 1000 KKIM. Hey, Clay, we've got to interview some great people on my short list of people to interview. A couple of weeks ago we had Thomas Sowell, we had Newt Gingrich a while ago. But on the top of my short list of people I've always wanted to interview is the gentleman we're about to have on. Pulitzer Prize winner, columnist from the Washington Post, and a member of This Week with George Stephanopoulos, roundtable member, George Will. Mr. Will, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Thanks for having me.
It's truly an honor to interview you. Like I say, I've been a big fan for a long, long time. So, and we have you for a segment here, and I've got a couple of questions. I'm going to be all over the board here, but one of the things you said last Sunday on the show on This Week, you were talking about the sequester, and I got the feeling that you're not that opposed to it happening. I mean, if it happens, it happens. You think it might be a good thing?
I think it would be a good thing. Obviously, this is not the ideal way to run a government with across-the-board cuts. It's an example of government failing to do what government ought to do, which is set priorities. But having said that, the real question in the real world about the real government we've got is not whether we can have intelligent government, but whether we can have smaller government. And the only way we're going to get serious spending cuts is through the sequester. I say bring it on.
So you don't think it's going to hurt defense to the point where it'll hurt us in the long run, especially with what's going on in the Middle East?
Well, look, just take the Middle East. The Navy, anticipating the sequester, has delayed the deployment of the carrier group around the super carrier Harry S. Truman, thereby, in effect, repealing our doctrine, which was to have always two carrier groups in the Persian Gulf as part of our pressure on Iran. Now think about this. You're running the Navy, and that's the only way you can find to save money? The answer is of course that's not so.
They're grandstanding.
But they're doing this to pressure Congress and as a public relations stunt. And I think when the Navy starts sacrificing the most urgent defense needs of the country to score these publicity points, it's time that even defense get sort of hit upside the head with a 2x4 and said, let's get more serious.
Clay?
I think the areas that are going to be hurt the worst are going to be around your area, Washington, Delaware, and Virginia, I understand, because of all the cuts back on the military.
Well, the cut back on the military, and of course Washington has become the richest city in America. And something like 3 of the 5 richest counties in America are in the suburban Washington area because of all the civilian employment as well. The people living off the rent-seeking and the consulting and all the rest that is part of big government. Washington is perfectly immune to the business cycle. It grows in good times and grows even faster in bad times. And for the sequester to begin to visit on Washington a little bit of the pain is also a good thing.
Well, I understand the president a couple of years ago, or less than a year ago, was all in favor of the sequester, and now he doesn't even want to do it. He's going to veto anything, supposedly.
Well, he has pledged that he would veto any. A year ago, he pledged he'd veto any attempt to undo the sequester. And now that he's looking at this, he now faces the fact that the leverage has shifted. The leverage over the Bush tax cuts was all his because they were going to happen unless something was done about them. And he could prevent anything from being done about the expiration of the Bush tax rates. Now the leverage has flipped. The sequester will happen, and he's powerless to stop it unless Congress does something to stop the sequester, and the House of Representatives, controlled by Republicans, will not do that.
Speaking of the House of Representatives, our congressman is the Majority Whip McCarthy, and we had him in studio a couple of weeks ago, and he said he was sitting next to former President Clinton at an event, and he said, I can't believe that we miss you, which I thought was an interesting comment. Yeah. Clinton in his second term moved to the center. This guy looks like he's moving further and further to the left.
Well, he is. Clinton moved to the center. He began to move actually in the middle of his first term when the Republicans under Newt Gingrich ended 40 years of Democratic control of the House in the 1994 elections. He Clinton, as it was a good politician, took the lay of the land, made that famous State of the Union speech where he said the era of big government is over. It isn't, but at least he had the right thought. And you're absolutely right, was a much more moderate president for the remainder of his term. And you're also absolutely right that this president has decided that he has a mandate to move to the left. Now think about that. He just became, running against Mitt Romney, he became the first president in history reelected with a smaller percentage of both the popular and the electoral votes, and he translates that into a mandate for bigger government.
Well, I got elected.
Yeah, that's his thinking.
Yeah, so did the members of the House of Representatives, and almost all of them won their districts by a bigger margin than he won his election.
That's amazing. We're having a conversation with columnist George Will. So on that same thought there, that's a good segue there. The Republican Party, I know here in California, I see a lot of people that are changing the R to an I to independent because they're not feeling it from the Republican Party. So can the Republican Party win without the support in the minority community? Are we doomed to be a minority party?
Well, we're certainly doomed to be a minority party if we lose, as we did in 2012, the largest minority group in the country, Hispanics, with 71% of the vote. Even more ominous for Republicans in the 2012 returns was the fact that they lost the fastest-growing minority in the country, which is Asian Americans, fastest growing in percentage terms, and lost them by a larger percentage, 73%. So clearly the Republican Party has not been communicating a welcoming attitude toward minorities, and that has to change, but I think it can change.
It has to change.
Clay, go ahead.
No, it has to change. There's no doubt about it. Interesting enough, I'm scheduled to have dinner with Kevin McCarthy on Monday night, but I have to go to Washington to do it. I can't have it in Bakersfield where he lives.
Well, welcome to Washington.
Yeah.
George, I have another question for you. And again, we're across the board here because we have you for a segment. We had Waleed Ferris on last week. Fascinating guy. We've had him on before. And I asked him the same question. Do you think we're going to get to the point with Israel where Israel is going to say, we can't wait any longer, and they're going to have to make a move for their own self-defense against Iran?
I think we could. I think it's harder and gets harder every day than we might think for Israel to do this on its own. The Israeli Defense Forces are superb. The Israeli Air Force has imaginative leaders and great capacities, but it's not clear how many sorties would have to be flown against Iran to make a serious degradation of their nuclear capability. The first thing you'd have to do, and again, imagine Israel doing this on their own, they would have to suppress and degrade the serious anti-aircraft defenses that Iran has. That's before you get to the problem of finding and damaging the many dispersed and hardened targets associated with the nuclear weapons program. I am not absolutely convinced that Israel has the capacity to do this, to take this risk with attendant dangers for what might be a marginal and short-term damage to the Iranian nuclear plan. Remember, the minute they do this, they're apt to have rained down upon them thousands and thousands of rockets launched from Hamas and Hezbollah.
But can they take the chance and not do it?
That's the problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, fortunately, they have a shield that can help defend against some of those rockets.
They certainly do. They defend against the big ones, but an awful lot of damage can be done by the shorter-range rockets that can saturate and overwhelm even a Patriot, Patriot missile batteries they'll have.
Well, now, George, we have you for about a minute and a half left, and I'm going to have to ask you a different kind of question, since I know I think you're the guru on baseball. Do you think the Dodgers are going to be a force to reckon with this year with the new ownership and everything?
Well, if money matters, yes. But as we demonstrate in Washington every day, you can throw money at problems and the problems stay there. And I think the Dodgers may have done that, picking up $250 million of bad contracts from the Boston Red Sox.
No, I think you hit it on the nose, wasting money in Washington.
Yes, and then my last question for you is, I met Maury Wills not too long ago, and I can't understand why he is not in the Hall of Fame.
Well, it's a good question. I think he'd be in the Hall of Fame if, like Lou Brock, another great base stealer who really followed Maury Wills, who revitalized the running game in baseball, he'd be in there if like Lou Brock, he had 3,000 hits. I think some of the voters for the Hall of Fame think he was a bit of a one-dimensional player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but his one dimension was so fantastic.
That is true, and he made baseball was a lot better for his example.
Mm-hmm. George, thank you so much for the time, and I appreciate you coming on. And again, this has been a thrill for me. You've been on my short list of people I've always wanted to interview, so thank you so much, and we'd love to have you come back.
Well, good luck to your show, and I'll do it.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Clay, that was fun.
That it was fun. He's a knowledgeable individual, isn't he?
Yeah, and I highly recommend his show this week, George Stephanopoulos, on Sunday mornings.
All right. You have to close the show at all, or what do you do?
We are done. We will be back in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.